Good morning to you all. Can you all hear me? Yeah, at the back too? Yes, good. Okay. First of all, can I congratulate the team here, not only on all of this, but just on the choice of your name, Brightlife. I think it was a brilliant decision. That's what it's about. It's so positive. And that's what I'm going to talk about, what I'm going to challenge you about to some extent. And I'm going to knock this with this bracelet and make noises. Yeah. When I started blogging a few years ago, I was in a blogging class, and I went to the blogging class, and I was 80 odd, and all the rest of the people in it were 30 or less. It was quite an interesting exchange of ideas. It was great. They were wonderful. They welcomed me. They helped me with all the technology. And then they said, "What are you going to write about?" And I thought, I'm not going to do food and travel. Everybody does that. They said, "Why don't you write about being old? We've been interested to hear what you've said about what it's like to be old." I thought, yeah, I like that. And then I began to think, and I thought, I had been very surprised by getting old. I'm now 84, and I really had the happiest few years of my life in the last 20 years. It's been great, and I had not expected that. I hadn't known that. I was a physiotherapist, and all I'd run across were old people in trouble. I didn't know how many millions of older people there were out there having a good life. And that's one of the things that was not known. Because what was going on at that time, and which was striking me with horror, was all the negative stereotypes of old age that were everywhere. 3 years ago, it was really quite horrific. All of the key charities were doing warning about being old and being lonely, being da-da. It was getting out as a message, as if old age was something to dread and something to fear. And I was thinking, but that's not right. There are 11.9 million people over 65. Only a small percentage, 12%, actually need care, help, and there's 8 million people living perfectly happy, normal lives. They've got new knees, they've got new hips, they've got all sorts of bits of blood pressure problems, a bit of diabetes or something, but they're just getting on and coping and living with it. So we've got problems to deal with, and you've been tackling those, but we've got to recognise too that there's a whole phase of being old that's great and positive and good. And what we're trying to do, I think, is to actually get that over to the public, that old age is something that is part of normal life, it's a normal stage of life, and not to fear. And the stereotype has been so wrong. It's not the same in some other countries. In the East and Africa, the stereotype of old age is different. But here we've got a very negative one, or have had, and it's been very damaging. And it's been damaging because it destroys egos. It destroys other people's view of you if you're old. It gets internalized inside you, and you begin to feel what that stereotype says about you. And I suspect quite a few of the people you've been talking about, the lonelier age group, have got that internalized, I'm not worth it, I can't do it, I'm old, it's not good. They lose confidence and they lose ego. And we have got a quite serious problem of unthinking ageism in our society. We don't have too much overt ageism. It's not that bad, as it used to be, say, with racism or homophobia. But we've got a lot of unthinking ageism. It comes out in very strange ways. Like, I was in the doctor's surgery this week, and she said, "How old are you?" I said, "I'm 84. And she said, "Oh, just a spring chicken." Now, that is an ageist remark. She's implying that to be young is good, right? Therefore, by implication, to be old is bad. And we get a lot of that. "Oh, you don't look your age." What age am I supposed to look when I'm 80? There's a lot of these sort of weird little negatives going on that we don't think about, we just use. And one of the challenges I want to put to you is help out with this idea of changing the image of old age in a way that is, we challenge those unthinking ageisms. They're rather patronising, aren't they? They're not really right. So the evidence suggests very clearly that if you hold a positive image about being old, and if you are positive about being old, you will live probably on average 7 years longer. And not only that, you will be healthier. So it's no good to our society to have negative images. What we want to create is a positive image. And we want to create that in the general public, that they understand that old age is really not what they think it is, and among old people themselves, so they have the confidence to be who they are and proud of who they are and moving on with who they are. When I was doing my blog, one of the classes I went to, the group there, these youngsters, were writing about their dating and their sex lives and things. But when they got round to writing, talking about their sex life, they were doing this sort of askance look. Was it all right to talk about that in front of me at 80? So I said, hang on a minute. I've had 60 more years' experience of sex than you have. Yeah. You know, do you think we don't have a sex life at 80? And they all went, what? The men in particular went, what? I've never seen jaws drop literally like that. I said, but we do, of course we do. You know, why not? We're still human, we're no different from anybody else. You still like cuddling somebody, stroking somebody, being cuddled. It's just as nice. And in any case, you don't care anymore about the wrinkles. It's the twinkles that matter, as somebody else was talking about. Yeah, you know, so that's all wrong that anybody's thinking that we're not just normal human people. And they said, why don't you write about that then? So I took a deep breath and talked to my husband and did write a blog, really in the same vein I'm talking to you, about how nice it is. Not only that, it's better. You've got all day, haven't you? You don't have to get up in the morning. Yeah. And not only that, you know what you like and you know what you don't like. It's a much better stage of life altogether. You're not into notching bedposts in quite the same way. You just do it to enjoy it. And because you care about each other. Have you ever noticed, I do it sometimes, when you're walking around some area where a lot of old people, tourists or anybody around in any resort or anywhere, who's holding hands? And if you count the percentage of people holding hands, you'll find the majority, by a long way, are over 60, with grey hair, holding hands. There's more romance over 60 than Bob. You're good. Yeah. A lot of people getting remarried now, shacking up again. It's great, yeah. So because I wrote that blog, needless to say, all the red top newspapers picked it up, as they do. And I sort of then got named as the blogging sex grandma or something. And I got invited onto This Morning with Philip Schofield and Holly. And of course, they wanted me to talk about sex. And when you go into ITV studios, you're sitting in the waiting area, and there's the big screen like that, showing what other people are talking about at the moment. And there on it was, next, Grandma Williams, sex blogger. I'm actually the ex-chair of the Chartered Society of Physiotherapy, and I have an MBE. Grandma Williams checked. However, they did want to talk about sex, so I did a little bit. What I've been saying to you, but it's great, it's better, and why not? We're human. And said, so Philip Schofield said, so what you're saying is that you really need to stay young at heart. And I said, can I just stop you there? Why have you said young at heart? And he said, well, because you clearly are young. I said, no, I'm old, and I'm proud to be old. I'm old at heart. What you've just said is ageist. You're implying that to be young at heart is good and not to be old. And it's that unthinking sort of ageism that needs calling out. This assumption that young equals good, therefore old is bad. Yeah? And we've got to shift that. We have a significant need to change the image of old age in our society and get it more accurate. If you look at the curve of human happiness, I don't know if you've ever seen that curve, it's a wonderful curve. It starts when you're young, you're happy when you're a kid. Then it dips, middle age, mortgages, teenagers, and then it starts to go up again. And it peaks around 73. And it stays high then. Why? Why are you happier when you're 70 plus? And most people are. And when you ask them, do you want to be young again? Most people say, no, I wouldn't go back to that. I don't want to. I enjoy where I am now, who I am now. And I'm past all that worry and ambition and things. I'm free now is the word a lot of people talk about. And there's a very nice sort of set of figures about life satisfaction at that end of life. Now, that does not mean to say there's not a proportion of people who've not got it right, the ones you're hoping, but a large proportion of people are. But nobody is saying all that. You know, this is where old age is and where you're all going. You know, why worry about it? It's nice. So what I want to do really is to get that idea of that image change. And the reason we need to do it, one reason, is very much that the whole demography of this is, you've been talking about the demography change, but have you really stopped to think what it means? It used to be, around 1911, I think it was, that the age of 65 was deemed to be old, you know, and you were going to fall off the edge at somewhere around that time. And that's been set as old ever since then, more or less. But the reality now is, if you look at the life curve, it used to be you went along in your life and then at 65 you started doing this. Now it's, you go along like this, 65, nothing happens. You're still the same person, maybe still working, you know, still playing tennis, still doing whatever. You start getting a bit rusty, your knees go, you need a new hip, you have a little dip, you get back up again, then you have another hip done, get your cataracts done, get your hearing aid, get your blood pressure pills. You know, you're beginning to slack. But most people are living perfectly active lives because we're tough, aren't we? You know, once you've got to 70, you're tough. You've coped with things, you've dealt with things, you know how to deal with things, you put up with things, you get past things, you've done it before. And so you keep going, all right, because you can. And then, of course, there is an end, because there always is an end, and that's what life is, and there's a drop-off. But that drop-off has moved from 65 to 79. So what we've got now is a huge and growing population of active, fit, busy people who are tough, resilient, have got experience, have got know-how, a whole resource coming into our society that we're not really saying, look, these are great stage, great age, great people. Let's use them, let's work with them, let's be part of it. And you are using them as volunteers. You know, you're really using them and you're getting other people to join in with their lives, so everybody is mixing. And that's what we actually need. We need to get that understanding of that life curve, and we need to prevent that drop-off slipping back by keeping people active and busy and confident and so on, so that life curve stays up there. The NHS has done a brilliant job with all these hips, knees, stents, everything. You know, most of us, when I was young, I would have been in a wheelchair through my knees, I would have been blind through my cataracts, I would have been deaf because of my hearing aid, I probably would have lost my teeth. You know, at this age, I would have been seriously old. I'm fine. Yeah. I've got all those things, but I'm fine. You know, so I read statistics that say, all these people over 65 have got 3 life something or other illnesses. Well, so what? I've got them. I'm living with them. And that sort of statistic needs challenging or rather rethinking. What does it actually mean? Yeah. So what I would like to see in the future is taking away that feeling that people of 50-year-olds have, that they're afraid of getting old. They want to stay young because, you know, if I get old, it's the end. And the markets all play up to that, don't they? Anti-aging creams, young this, young that. Stop it, for heaven's sake. They're just doing that to sell you things. For heaven's sake, we need to move on to the fact it's okay to get old, it's normal, it's human, it's part of what everybody does. And anybody whose age is to say, hang on, it's your own life, your own future you're talking about. You know, if you don't get the world right for your future, this is, you know, you get the right world right now for older people, it'll be you that'll be living it. So get it right. This understanding, it's not like a lot of the other isms, like racism. You won't suddenly turn black, you know, or grey or whatever colour. You know, you will actually, though, get old. It's a different sort of thing, and people need to understand that what we're dealing with is their own future, and therefore the attitude to their own future needs to change. And that's what I'm hoping the next challenge for you all be. So starting in May this year, I thought we need to really get this as a movement, a campaign. So I started a Twitter campaign called #AgeProud. And the whole point of that #AgeProud thing was to say that age is relevant. I'm happy with the age is irrelevant when we're saying I don't count age, it's who you are and what you do that matters. But at the same time, I want people to feel that they can say, I'm 84, and I'm proud of it. I've made it, I've done it, I've achieved it, I've got there, yeah? And I don't want people to be afraid of that. I want you to say 60, I'll be 61 next year. You know, proud to be old, because you've acquired a whole load of knowledge, a whole load of experience. You've got confidence. You know what you like now. You know what you don't like. You know what you're not going to do, and you know what you are going to do. You've become your own person. And by the time you're 70, you're pretty sure who you are. And that's an important thing, I think. You're mature. I like the word mature attached to people over 70, because I think that's what we're talking about. You've developed this value system that's taken out so much of the competition, so much of the fear of the future. You actually understand life with a long view of it. You can see it in how it progressed. People say, I still feel 6. You know, when you're 76 or 86, you actually still do feel 6. You also feel 16. You also feel 36, because you have been all those ages, and you still can be in your head. You can switch on your 6-year-old and play sandcastles. You can switch on your 16-year-old and dance. You've got that life experience of all those things that you have lived and done, and therefore can share with other people and understand. And I think we ought to be seen as a resource for sharing and passing on that know-how. There is so much the older generation know about living and about life that they should be sharing with the younger generation. I don't think it should be. This morning we were talking about social prescribing. I think it should be two ways. I think young mothers need to get prescribed to meet an older woman who's brought up kids. You know, I think we need two social connections with information going both ways, and older people being valued for what they've lived through and coped with, and got past it. You know, grief is a terrible thing. You lose a partner, you lose a close friend, you lose a child, but you had to get past it. You did get past it, and you can talk to the people about how you got past it. You also failed at jobs or something. On the other hand, you're still here. You know, so you've acquired coping skills that you can share with other people, and I think we're a whole resource that needs passing on and actually using properly. I think one of the things that's really excited me this last week is seeing the veterans. I don't know about you've seen it, but there they were sitting there, 101, full of themselves, absolutely age proud to the end. It's the same person that was at Dunkirk, but they're actually just in a different skin. And that's what's happened to all of you. You're the same person when you were 16, but you're now in a different skin. And that just goes on. You keep changing, a bit like a butterfly, you keep changing your skin. And, you finish up, you're still the same person. So what you're trying to do with all your connections is to reconnect people back to that person they were, and rebuild them and put them back into society. And society to value and see that age is something to be proud of and something that's an important resource for our society. I'll leave you there.